So S4HANA, when it was announced in early 2015, I was actually very excited because I said, finally, after years of complaints from customers, SAP is doing something very different. It'll be in the cloud. It'll include new best practices. I was genuinely excited. And I got even more excited when Hasso Plautner told the press, this better work. If it doesn't work, we are dead, flat out dead. And I was, I listened to Bill McDermott say this is the biggest product launch in the last 23 years. I was genuinely excited by the excitement that SAP management showed when they launched the product. So that was the promise that led me to write SAP Nation 2.0, because I said, this is clearly a new chapter in the SAP journey. What has happened since, though, is even though it's been now over 18 months since the product was announced, the number of unanswered questions, certainly in my mind and certainly in the mind of a lot of customers I talk to, hasn't gone down much. The other big concern that I'm starting to hear from a number of customers is if R3 and ECC weren't getting much investment, they see even less investment going into it. So ECC is legacy, and if I talk to industry solution folks, the IS products, they feel like it's even more legacy. The S4HANA rollout, the branding has been somewhat confusing. It was originally Simple Finance, Simple Logistics, so it was a functional branding. Then they moved to a number, depending on when in the month of the year it was released. I started to hear from customers, there are so many, the number of choices in terms of deployment are dizzying. You can deploy on-premise, you can deploy in a hybrid mode, you can deploy in the cloud. In the cloud, they have multiple offerings, and all of them seem to have a different release cycle. In the cloud, they have 4 release cycles. On-premise, it's once a year. So a lot of confusion around deployment. Fiori, which a number of customers are excited about, if you look at it and if you step back and you look at the whole industry and how UX is evolving, the innovation is really coming from the consumer tech world. If you look at what Amazon is doing with Echo and voice user interfaces, if you look at the auto industry and look at what they're doing with next generation haptic interfaces and so on, if you look at what Facebook's doing with virtual reality, Fiori, even though it was a major jump compared to SAP GUI, really already looks dated. HANA, the big question around HANA when it comes to S4 is now you're not just going to be using it as a sidecar analytical engine, you're using it as a transaction processing engine. So what does that mean in terms of recovery within seconds? What does it mean in terms of systems management tools and so on? So a lot of unanswered questions around S4. Let's now step back and say, what do I see customers doing? What are the coping strategies that I saw and I wrote about in SAP Nation? I saw several customers repeat these strategies, and some of them, like the first one that I'll describe, I've seen over 1,000 customers try out. So many of them are saying, SAP will continue to be my backbone on in my data center or in a hosted center, but I'm going to start innovating at the edge. So I will try out Workday for my HR, I'll try Salesforce for my CRM, I'll try DocuSign for my contracting. I know some SAP customers that have 40 cloud solutions around SAP. So ring fencing with cloud is becoming a very, very common strategy, not just with SAP cloud solutions, but external cloud solutions. So that's a pretty common and safe strategy for a number of customers. Let's talk about independent support a little bit and the Rimini role there. I talked to, for the book, several of Rimini's customers, ColorSpot, and they were all different configurations. So ColorSpot, which is a smaller customer, they wanted to stay with 4.7. they really like SAP, but they just said we couldn't afford to move to ECC, couldn't justify, no ROI. And in their case, it was a case of just a lateral move to Rimini, keep supporting me on 4.7. Embraer, in Brazil, the aerospace company, they wanted to stay with 4.7, but in their case, they had massive amount of customizations. Brazil is one of the most regulated environments in the world, and so they had a number of those to consider. And the aerospace industry obviously has a lot of compliance and regulatory issues that they wanted to be covered. And Rimini took over quite a few of those customizations also as part of its support. I then heard recently World Kitchen talking about ECC 6 and in addition evaluating S4HANA, and basically they decided they couldn't, SAP S4HANA wasn't mature enough, so they said, while we wait for that, why don't we allow Rimini to support us in the interim. The nice thing about all these that I heard was, I originally thought most people were doing it because they could get 50% savings, which is what Rimini promises. But over and over again, I heard from these customers that the quality also improved. So World Kitchen, the CIO, said his number of tickets actually jumped, almost doubled, because he said, with SAP we had given up. Our users wouldn't even write tickets because it would take so long to get SAP to resolve them. They just gave up. He says with Rimini, actually they have started to write more tickets. With ColorSpot, I heard, the service was like, I have my Rimini rep on speed dial on my cell phone. So more and more I heard quality and service improvements in addition to a lower cost.